Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 606 for the 24th of May 2020. Richard Saunders here with you from a bit wet and cold, rainy Sydney, Australia. Coming up on this week's show, it's the return of the think tank. Long-time listeners to the show will remember, but years ago, in the early days of the Skeptic Zone reporters and guests would meet at the club at the end of the street, which is a club about 10 minutes walk from where I live. Anyway, would meet there, have a nice dinner in the evenings, a couple of drinks, and record a live session of the think tank, which is basically chatting about skeptical issues of the day. On this week's show, we do it again, or we did it again yesterday. We got together virtually. We Zoomed, so to speak. And what do we discuss? We discuss strange machines that promise to zap your viruses or parasites. They also promise to send magical waves through your body and detect vibrations and report back and say, look, this person's got a bad liver, or the heart's not so good, or this person needs homeopathic treatment. Bioresonance machines and zappers and things like that, all up for discussion in the think tank. And then to round off the show, we have another report from our friend Susan Gerbic, About Time. Why do I say about time? Because the report is about time. Now, it is about time. Not about time, but it's about time. Find out what I mean with Susan Gerbic coming up to round off the show this week. Before we get stuck into the show, I must say I have been enjoying the various online skeptical meetings and groups and events and talks lately. Seems to be a lot of them, hardly a surprise. I've already gone to... Can I really say that? I haven't actually gone to one. They've come to me. One from the Gold Coast here in Australia, another one from Victoria, both on the same night. That was interesting. There's been ones from California. The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe have a weekly online presence where you can see them all chatting. And even, my goodness me, even our own Maynard has a live show every week, which is fabulous, great fun. I might even send a video of me dancing into Maynard. He's been encouraging his viewers to send in dancing videos. I'll add a link in this week's show notes. But now it's time for me not to run downstairs. It's time for me to reach over here to the other side of the microphone arm. What's this? That looks good. This is a mocha. I think I've got the term right. It's coffee and chocolate. Let me see. Oh, that's yummy, Richard. While I enjoy that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
Well, welcome everybody to the very first virtual think tank, and I'd like to welcome a wide selection of the Skeptic Zone reporters here for this first time that we've been doing this way. Now, the think tank was something we used to do at the club at the end of the street many years ago for the Skeptic Zone. We'd get together physically, all in the same room, have a big Chinese meal, lots of drinks, and then chat about skeptical issues of the day. Now we've been reduced to using the internet because of, well, I guess you don't need to know why. Joining me in this first virtual think tank are reporters from all over Australia. We have way up in the Northern Territory, Michelle Franklin. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, how are you going?
Great to see you. And of course, you do the Life is Wild segment. We have in Sydney, Eran Segev.
Hello, everyone.
Grain of salt. Come on, everybody. Grain of salt.
Grain of salt.
In Brisbane, we've got Dr. Paulie. Hello, Dr. Paulie.
Oh, not quite. We're in that suburb down south that's way better than Brisbane. We're in the Gold Coast.
Near Brisbane, in the Gold Coast, of course. From the Northern Rivers, it's the raw skeptic herself, Heidi Robertson.
Hello. It's a chilly 12 degrees Celsius here.
Ooh. Really? Oh, yes, it does get cool up there. I used to live there. I should know that. In Sydney, we have Trish and Chips. It's Trish Hann. Hello, Trish.
Hello, Richard. How you doing?
I'm fine. And there's a nice skeleton behind you with a face mask on, I can see. That's good.
Yeah.
Keep that skeleton safe and healthy. And all the way in there. Ooh. And all the way there in Brisbane. That's fighting words. It's Mandy-Lee Noble. Hello, Mandy-Lee.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And joining us from fabulous Melbourne, Victoria, it's Michelle Bijkersma. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Richard. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be here and to see you all.
Great to see everybody. Well, this is the first time, as I said, this is the first time we've all been, or most of the Skeptic Zone reporters have been together virtually like this. So we've got some interesting things to chat about today. Let me kick off with a story that came to my attention, and it came to my attention because I attended a Gold Coast Zoom lecture last week, Dr. Paulie. That was really great, by Ken Harvey, talking about all sorts of medical quackery and things. And that led me down a few rabbit holes to discover that the TGA, the Therapeutics Goods Administration, have recently, in the last year, put out a press release saying that they're cracking down on non-compliant advertising of bioresonance and other similar devices. Now, we'll get to those in a minute, which then had me thinking, wait a minute, didn't I personally, with some other skeptics, attend a press conference way back in 2002 here in New South Wales by the then Minister of Health, where he said we are cracking down on these zapping bioresonance devices. So in 2002, the Minister for Health in New South Wales, Craig Knowles, formed a committee, the Health Claims and Consumer Protection Advisory Committee, to investigate the more obvious forms of quack medical devices. These were things like zappers that claim to be able to use energy to scan, then zap diseases in the body. Claims were made for curing cancer and AIDS. Also in the sights of the committee were things like homeopathic vaccines. The committee was headed up by Professor John Dwyer, a supporter of science. The minister used very strong terms in this press conference, and I videoed the press conference, and it's now up on the Australian Skeptics website on the YouTube channel. I'll link to it in the show notes. He called these devices bogus, bodged together devices, and promised to close down practitioners that used these devices. After this, news of various alternative medicine practitioners and interested groups came to our attention that they were somewhat alarmed that the government were cracking down on these devices. And they formed an alliance called the Natural Health Care Alliance, or the NHCA. This led to an organized campaign at the time. And I've got here a letter that was sent out in 2003 by the Natural Health Care Alliance to practitioners saying, we would like to introduce ourselves by presenting to you a brief history of who they are. We are known as the Natural Health Care Alliance, and they go on to say about this committee to investigate quackery, considerable concern arose in the natural and complementary healthcare NACH industry from the minister's press release, especially with the selection of Professor John Dwyer as the chair. Professor Dwyer has been a vocal and public critic of NHCH over the past decade. A small group of concerned industry and associated members came together to form a response group, and what followed was as remarkable as it was effective. The minister and New South Wales parliamentarians were inundated with protest letters from practitioners and public alike as the broad body of the NACH community came together in an unprecedented unity to put their case to the Minister and New South Wales Health. This unified response, the strength of the representations, and the reasonableness of demands of the industry were all cited to the success of preventing a witch hunt of NACH products and practitioners, and were a critical factor in making the HCCPAC transparent and representative. And according to our friend Peter Bowditch, who wrote about this whole thing, the committee was eventually sabotaged and neutered by the inclusion of representatives of the very quackery industry that it was set up to investigate. Now, the fact is that we can still find at Mind, Body, Spirit festivals these machines, and they're still out there being used by naturopaths and other people, is stark testimony to the fact that this wonderful committee that was set up with, and we were full of hope, we think this is great, the government are at last taking action, really sort of fizzled. And when you hear what the minister has to say, he was absolutely definite. We're going to take these people to task. We're going to do all these things. Now, Eran, let's bring you in here, because you and I and some other skeptics some years ago were at Mind, Body, Spirit, and we came across the Metatron non-linear scanning device. Do you remember that?
I do. I got connected to this device. There's my recollection is there was headphones, just regular, JB Hi-Fi kind of headphones that were supposed to extract the energy out of me for the device. I don't know whether it's through the ears or just because it's on the head. It was not entirely clear, and something on my finger as well. I suppose that's just as to earth me. There were all kinds of things flashing on the screen that showed there was basically a picture of a human body, with where the different internal organs are, and there were occasionally the liver would flash or one of the kidneys. And she was able to tell me a lot of stuff, and obviously none of it had anything to do with my real health situation at the time. The amazing thing was that it cost a lot. It cost like $115 if I remember correctly. And then the most disappointing part of all of this was that Bupa reimbursed me for it. They didn't reimburse the whole thing, but the fact I said I've got to claim this. I have to see what happens, and they reimbursed me like 20% or something.
Wow!
This would be about 5 years ago. It was just before Brad joined our committee 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether that would still fly, given the review that they've had of all the slightly, some of the more wooey things that you can claim on health insurance. Naturopaths can still claim for naturopaths with most health funds. By the way, this is something I don't know whether it's still true, but a few years ago, Australian Skeptics, we did a review of what the health funds do, and it was interesting to find that the only health fund of all the health funds, private health funds in Australia, the only one that reimburses for no quackery at all, nothing, was the Doctors' Health Fund.
Yep.
Now, the device that you were hooked up to, Eran, is known as the Metatron nonlinear scanning, or NLS. It's from Russia. Oh, yes, it's from Russia. And the woman involved, the naturopath, is from a clinic in Mossvale, which is outside of Sydney, called DH Natural Medicine Clinic, run by Dana Hiliko. And at her practice, you can have live blood analysis and get homeopathy. But the claims that she makes for this Metatron is that it will, scan your whole body, show you where the pathogens are, including things like parasites, and then zap them. It sends messages back through the headphones, which go into the body, finds the parasite on your liver or wherever the hell it is, and give them a zap and kill them. Zapping is exactly the term that the minister used almost 20 years ago. He said, we want to ban these and rule these and stop these from happening.
Richard, wasn't Vera Scheibner selling zappers of various kinds as well, the anti-vaxxer?
That rings a bell. I'd have to look at that. Yeah, after 20 years, it all gets a bit of a jumble. Who was selling which
quacked in what quackery?
Which quack where? So we're interested. I've been studying this thing on and off for years, but I think this lecture by Ken Harvey has really motivated me to take this further. Now, you can buy these products, the Metatron, here in Australia by a group called NLS Australasia, and they've got a website where you can buy it, and they market different varieties of this. Sort of one based for Chinese people, which is all very Oriental and Chinese symbols and things like that. One base that says for Western medicine, so you can see where that's going. And it comes from the Institute of Practical Psychophysics in Omsk, which was founded in 1990, where one Vladimir Nestorov invented the science for making this device. It's quite incredible, but what's maybe even more incredible is, yes, in just last year, the TGA, the Therapeutics Goods Administration, said they're going to be cracking down on bioresonance machines. So we're living in a dream, in a revolving cycle here. So maybe this time they'll do something about it.
This reminds me of a recent thing that happened to me about 12 or 18 months ago, where I was doing a little bit of contract work for one of the insurers, where they just get me to come along to corporate places and do little nutrition reviews. So how are you going with your nutrition? Yeah. And then I was there, they had someone from one of the big insurers, and they had like an electronic device that was like a pen that they would put to people's hand, and it would tell them how much of all the different vitamins and minerals they had and give them an actual printout.
Good grief.
And I didn't know what it was, but it was some sort of bioresonance device.
Yeah.
And so I just sort of, and going to do these sort of corporate nutrition things and corporate seminars is pretty, standard kind of stuff that they get dietitians to do. And if you're between jobs, it's a good bit of contract work. But to be doing that and then having at the next room, people would have this device that they used. And I asked where they got it from. It wasn't very expensive. They actually got it from Harvey Norman. And I tried to buy one. So this was before, not the last Skepticon, but the one beforehand. And they weren't very expensive. So I actually tried to buy one to take to Skepticon, but they'd all sold out.
Oh, no.
Wow. Now, Trish, let me ask you, from your point of view, being involved in actual scans of the human body, what would it mean to medicine and science if you could put a pair of headphones on and then see all your internal organs down to the level of DNA?
Honestly, like, for a start, assuming it didn't use ionizing radiation, it would remove a massive amount of the radiation that we give people. It would probably make me redundant, I imagine, because, if anyone can put a pair of headphones on someone, so I'd be out of a job almost instantly, as would my colleagues. But honestly, for healthcare...
Well, that's why you're trying to suppress this, isn't it?
Well, that's obviously why I joined the Skeptics, was to try and get rid of this thing. It's a real risk to me and my income. But it would mean, we could actually, instead of having to do a clinical examination of a patient followed by the appropriate imaging, if we could just put a set of headphones on, boom, done. And it would also mean as well, you could do it at home. So we could actually have, we have a thing called teleradiology, which is where someone miles away will report the imaging and then send the reports back. We could also do that with the scans themselves. I mean, you could get rid of radiology departments entirely. The most you'd need would be a small phone box size thing that you can sit in and chuck some headphones on. I'm not keen. I'll be honest, I'm not keen.
So I'm just showing the gang now. I don't know if you can see that. There's Eran, a picture of Eran actually having this test done. Look at that.
They're not even on your ears, Eran.
No, it's got nothing to do with my ears.
With a straight face.
Why would you expect them to be? Why would you expect them to be on my ears? It's an energy field.
It sounds like they just made some really poorly fitting headphones and made up a way to flog them off for profit.
And I'm also just showing the gang now. That's the screen in action, as you can see, or hopefully you see. It shows you all sorts of scanning devices, scanning images and graphs and charts and all sorts of things. Look at that.
Trish, what is this?
The images look pretty effective.
Look at those kidneys. Oh.
Apparently they're Iran's kidneys we're looking at right now. There you go.
Wow. I'm really offended that what we would call an axial slice there of the body was upside down. That just really, really offended me, because that's not how we look at them.
Well, I think now I've been motivated by what I've seen by Ken Harvey and remembering all this stuff from years ago, because when you've been doing this for a long time, all these things sort of build up. They never go away. I've got all the files. Maybe we can make much better representations to the authorities.
Richard, can we organise to send somebody in that has had a kidney removed and just see what happens? Just see what the scan shows.
Well, yes, we can, but the scan will just show kidneys, And there's probably an answer to that. Yes, well, it's interpreting the brain's memory of the kidneys. There's always an answer.
Yeah, there's always an answer.
Does anyone here have situs inversus, which is where your organs are on the other side of the body, so you're essentially a mirror image? If we know anyone in the skeptics community that has that, it's not a condition, you can live completely normally with it, please get in touch, because then we can send them off for a scan, and that will be hilarious.
Well, sometimes you can get identical twins, can't you? Where one twin has that. That's like a real, the mirror image twins. They would be perfect because you could do one side and then one the other side.
Very cool.
What the thing that gets to me is like for us, when we see this device, there's no thinking about it. We don't have to think, now, is that really possible? What's going on here? It's so obvious. But to people like this naturopath, these are exactly the people these people in Russia target. People like naturopaths and natural health people who haven't got the right education to know. They go along to a presentation, they're completely wowed, they're convinced by the science, look, it's on the screen, your patients will love it, and they fork over thousands of dollars for these things.
It's far more common than people think. I often have people come to me, like I'm providing clinical services, and then I'll say, how do you know that you have that? And they'll say, I went to my naturopath and they used some sort of electronic device on me and diagnosed it, like every week.
Really?
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is the thing, we're not actually picking up on the amount of woo that's out there in health.
I wonder how many...
Like 3 research questions that have come up, but we can discuss that offline, that we could use in order to collect some nice data and actually be able to pressure both demonstrate the pervasiveness of how frequently patients are perhaps using this and then going to a quote-unquote legitimate practitioner, but also to look at even despite the changes, the reforms in health insurance, that these things are still being subsidised. And then we could use that plus the TGA's review to pressure the health insurers to get them off those lists, because I think that's probably what's driving some of the behaviours.
And the problem is that a lot of it doesn't get detected, because if you go to the chiropractor, well, then you go to the naturopath for your nutrition. So you're kept within the circle of woo as far as your different health practitioners go. And it's only when you accidentally sort of pop out into someone who's evidence-based that it all gets uncovered. That you're going around doing all these treatments and buying all these really expensive supplements, hundreds and hundreds of dollars of supplements for no avail.
You know that these devices actually, I just thought about the fact that it's less effective than the Scientology e-meter, because the Scientology e-meter actually measures something, not something meaningful, but it is actually measuring something. This device doesn't measure anything.
I'd be interested to know with some of these patients, because one thing that I have encountered is it's becoming an increasing problem that many women don't go for their antenatal scans. So they don't go and have their abnormality scans at sort of 12 weeks, whatever, and to look at their babies. But a lot of them are going to go and get the 4D scans that you can get done basically anywhere that aren't actually medically useful. They're basically, you get the pretty picture of the hand and the face and everything, but you're not looking for the normal things that we look for in an antenatal scan to see whether that fetus is viable. So I wonder if there's any crossover there in people who are refusing to get actual medical scans, which are safe, but are instead maybe having these things done because it's not being given by a medical professional, but by a naturopath who is safe. Be interesting to know if there's any kind of crossover going on there as well.
That's an interesting point. And I was just glancing at this press release from last year from the TGA. Part of it says, the TGA is currently investigating the scientific credibility relating to diagnostic and therapeutic use of these devices. Really?
Therapeutic use?
Well, I mean, they're investigating the scientific credibility of these machines is be like investigating the credibility of the aerodynamics of a fairy. They call it tooth fairy science. Why would... And that, all led from things like going to Mind, Body, Spirit festivals. Have we all been to Mind, Body, Spirit festivals?
I walked past a psychic expo once and I looked in the door And there were about 17 psychics sitting around smoking and 2 visitors who looked a bit overwhelmed by all the psychics trying to get their attention.
There must be some up in your neck of the woods, Heidi.
Yeah, we've got various different woo festivals up here, and we've just got people in the street in Byron Bay, you know. We've got the palm readers and the tarot readers and the coffee grind readers and the tea leaf readers. You can just walk down the street in Byron and take your pick.
Sorry, what you call a Mind, Body, Spirit Festival, in Byron Bay they call Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right.
We had one from an interesting source up here. One of the members of our Darwin Skeptics group got an email from a pet minding service. So he used this pet minding service when he went on holiday. So he got on their email list and they emailed him about a month or 2 ago and offered him frequency therapy for his pets or for himself.
Frequency therapy. It's one of the words we look out for. Frequencies, vibrations, nano, quantum.
Well, the list of treatments that they're offering, it says, I'm offering programs for the treatment of pain, anxiety, sleep. So you've got to treat your sleep, apparently. Mental and emotional balance, skin, learning, fitness, meridians, chakras, bioenergetic balance, protection programs, aids in healing with stimulating cell function.
Wow.
So this is if you need your dog looked after when you go on holidays, you can get your meridians sorted out by the same people.
Just around the corner from me at my home, there's an acupuncturist, and on his sign, he says that he'll fix woman problems.
What is a woman's problem exactly?
All women problems are just fixed with a glass of wine, thank you. Just
Well, that's a good point. Normally, when we used to have the think tank sessions, we'd all be having a nice glass of wine or a couple of beers, but at 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe not such a good idea. Now, Michelle down there in Melbourne, Michelle Bijkersma, have you ever been to one of these spirit mind festivals down there?
I haven't been able to bring myself to go, to be honest, but we have a psychic fair come to my actual suburb. We're on the circuit. So I've, been disappointed by friends going along and coming back to report that it must have been true because the psychic couldn't have known. The usual things that we hear, but no, my area's pretty woo, but I actually haven't been. I've just recoiled, really.
Well, when this madness is all over and things get back to somewhat normality, if there's another one coming up, I think every skeptic should go at least once. I mean, I've been going for 20 years, so but I do learn a lot of things. Now let's talk about another really strange thing, talking about this current situation. Heidi, there's been some news about a bizarre new conspiracy revolving around our currency here in Australia.
Yes. The $10 banknote, the Australian $10 banknote. I think the most recent one came out in 2017, which of course was 2 years prior to COVID-19. The new conspiracy claim, so the post that I saw read, quote, the new $10 Australian note complete with coronavirus symbols. You can't make this up. # are you awake yet? And so what they're saying is on our $10 note, they're saying that this $10 note contains signs that the whole COVID-19 pandemic is just an elaborate hoax. And they've hidden these clues in our $10 note that came out in 2017. So I don't know about you. I don't often look closely at the banknote, so I had to actually take a look at it. And look, I've just now printed out here.
Oh, wow, look at that.
So obviously the listeners won't be able to see it, but I'm just holding up to the screen a printout of the $10 note that they're talking about. And you can see the yellow flowers, which they are saying are the coronavirus. They're actually our national floral emblem, the flower of the wattle, which is a native species of flower here. And the little flowers, if you look closely, sure, they can, I guess, look a little bit like a representation of a coronavirus. But then they're also saying, see that figure there that I'm holding up? Apparently that's Bill Gates. That's Bill Gates on the $10 note. That's not Bill Gates. The two people featured on our $10 notes are Banjo Patterson and Dame Mary Gilmore. So I'm not sure how they think that's Bill Gates. But then, look, this isn't really that new because there is also the Britain's £20 banknote, which has had similar conspiracy theories going around about that. Did you hear about this one, Richard?
No.
The Britain's £20 banknote. So that was launched by the Bank of England on February the 20th this year. And there have been numerous posts that claim that the purple-coloured polymer notes contain an image of a 5G mobile tower. It's not. It's a lighthouse. And they also say there is a symbol that resembles the shape of the virus, which is actually an artistic representation of like an aerial view looking down a spiral staircase. So there we go. We've got the 5G tower with the coronavirus on the British £20 note. We've got the coronavirus and Bill Gates on our $10 note. And on the USA $1 bill, have any of you seen what's on the $1 bill? Because it will shock you.
I got one
Hashtag
here.
Are you awake yet? No, they've got a Freemason symbol on it. I don't know how it's escaped you, but on the $1 note, they've got a Freemason symbol on it, which is, there we go, Richard's holding one up now. See the pyramid, and up the top of the pyramid is an eye. Lots of people associate that image with the Illuminati or Freemasons. It's called the Eye of Providence. It's an old Christian symbol, and it was not uncommonly used during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. And then it was taken by the designers of the $1 bill as a so it was representing the eye of God watching over humanity and watching over the United States and whatnot.
You're buying this, aren't you? You really think that it's that you really are buying the story that it's not really the Illuminati.
The evidence is overwhelming. Okay. Come on. I mean, if you look at it, it's just obvious. There's a global consortium of faceless, powerless players intent on destroying humanity as we know it. They're controlling us all with mind control, microchips, which will obviously be put into the vaccine for COVID-19, which Bill Gates is organising. And
poor old Bill Gates.
They're advertising it in plain sight on various currency notes. So I'm a little bit disappointed, Eran, in your scepticism. In the face of what is overwhelming evidence.
Sorry.
Hashtag Are You Awake Yet?
Well,
I've got a better conspiracy for you.
Oh, yes.
About money. So last night on the way home from work, I went past an art gallery in St. Peter's, and it had in the window $100 notes with Scott Morrison's face on, proving that he values money more than people in opening up the lockdown sooner than he should have. And on top of that, not 2 hours after I went past that art gallery last night, a building nearby exploded. So I'm pretty sure that my conspiracy trumps everyone else's in that Scott Morrison values money more than people and he's trying to shut it down by blowing up St. Peter's.
I think we'll have to rename our show The Conspiracy Zone. But this $1 American $1 note is interesting, Heidi. I think listeners, could you please send in to the Skeptic Zone all your $1 notes so we can examine those personally? Now, the final thing we can chat about generally is that there was also another item about there's been an increase lately of people seeking the advice and the comfort of psychics and clairvoyants, but I'm not too surprised to hear that. I mean, these are troubled times.
I think it's not surprising. There's a lot of psychics around my area lately. They're using public libraries to actually see people, and I've contacted some of these public libraries and said, oh, you realise, because they don't go under the guise of a life coach, but when you look at their actual websites, they're psychics. And I said, oh, do you realise they're psychics? And they say, oh, well, we just hire the space out. And I go, yeah, but the space is owned by taxpayer money and it's greatly subsidised by taxpayer money. So I think, we should have some oversight over who's using the space and what for. But I've also noticed this week that Pete Evans in his podcast series has had on someone who channels people as well. So it seems to be that it is broadly people are looking for supernatural, I suppose, comfort in this time.
I wonder if there's an increase in people going to like various churches and religious type stuff for the same reason.
Sure. I mean, yes, it's hardly surprising. Yeah, troubled times, people are worried.
It's part of human nature, isn't it, to look for a reason and a cause and an explanation of something, especially if it's something that's out of your control.
And I guess we're kind of doing the same thing when we're all feeling a bit unsure of stuff, so we kind of turn to the science to seek comfort and sort of knowledge about what might happen. It's just that ours is probably more likely to be true than theirs is.
I think it stems as well from a feeling of a lack of control. Yep. When you feel that you can't control your environment and you can't control what's going on, you're either gonna, come to terms with it, or you're gonna embrace it and be like, well, I don't have control. The stars are in control of my life. There's been a massive explosion of apps with astrology. Like there's one, is it called CoStar? Everyone at my work has got this app, and it just gives you your astrology reading for the day, and it's like kind of a featured thing on your phone that comes up. And some of them it's just a bit of fun, but in some people I know that they really are taking it very seriously, and what will happen is throughout the day they'll be like, I knew that was going to happen because this morning when I checked my CoStar, I knew this, today was going to be a challenging day. It's like, you work in a hospital during a pandemic, every day is a challenging day. But it is kind of becoming a bit more prevalent, and it's really depressing.
Oh, yeah, it is. As they say, we live in interesting times, strange times. I'm glad to say, as I think listeners know, things in Australia aren't as bad, certainly, as they are in many other countries around the world. And, of course, we feel for people in many countries who are still yet to face the worst of this, sadly enough.
It was pretty shocking that in the article, Richard, that you posted for us to read, that the psychic was claiming her business had increased by 25%, I think it was. Yeah. That's pretty large number.
Yes, but if she only had 5 people come to her to begin with, that's one more extra.
That's
Could it also just be that people are bored and at home and want something to do, so they're like, oh, well, I'll give a psychic a go. This could be entertaining.
But she managed a number of psychics. Yeah, it wasn't just her. She was managing a number of them, and her business had increased.
But also, I think it's a time of uncertainty, and people in a time of uncertainty are seeking an explanation. And sometimes the conspiracy theories offer a very good explanation, as are all kinds of paranormal explanations. So there's definitely a huge rise in racism around coronavirus. I've encountered, for the first time in many, many years, Holocaust deniers on Facebook. Wow. Where I sent them some documents showing about the history of my family. That did not convince them. Surprisingly, they were not convinced by evidence. Yeah, I think it's generally the kind of thing people feel uncertain. They're looking for any kind of explanation, something. Doesn't have to be rooted in reality.
Did anyone look past the headlines of the SBS article that was doing the rounds about 1 in 7 Australians believing that 5G causes coronavirus? I only spotted the headline. I didn't read. Did anybody check that out?
I haven't seen what the local situation here is. I think it's worse in the UK. I think they've got real problems there. And I just think it's sort of bubbling along here with the general conspiracy theories. But I'm not sure.
I think the worry there is that there's obviously a lot of gateway woo, and when you have someone who wants to believe that this is all manufactured in a lab in Wuhan, they're going to Google things related to that, and then they're going to get articles by people like David Icke, and David Icke is a massive Holocaust denier. So then maybe it's going to open them up to more things like that. And then you're going to have this prevalence of other woo that is going to come out there. And if you're already inclined towards conspiracy theories, you're going to read these things and be like, oh, have you know, I'm connecting the dots, I'm putting the patterns together. And that's going to cause a really big problem, especially when you already feel like you are out of control and that something else is controlling you. If that something else is Bill Gates with a sodding great needle, then yeah.
Sorry, far be it from me to say anything positive about Telstra, but this is from Telstra's Facebook page. Somebody said, James A. said, take down 5G towers, they're weapons that cause COVID. And Telstra responded with, hi James, a 5G tower will help you download your conspiracy videos faster.
Perfect. That's the perfect response.
I think one thing that would really help is people use the word unprecedented quite a bit, and actually I think it's not true. I think this really is precedented, and we can look at back in time and we can see other flu outbreaks and even like the polio and what happened with polio, and we can see plenty of evidence of similar situations where humans have had to take, you know, a collaborative action. I don't know where I saw the polio. There was a little short documentary about polio and how they raised the money to come up with a polio vaccine through charity donations in America. And it just, I think, would remind people that this isn't unprecedented, and we just got to all work together and that sort of thing and push through it, you know, as a humanity does.
Yeah, that was known as the March of Dimes. That were people encouraged to give their dimes, their small change to aid this all those years ago. Well, on that note, I'd want to really thank all the wonderful Skeptic Zone reporters from around Australia who've joined me today in this virtual think tank. I think we'll do it again. I think every month or so we should make a habit of this. Maybe we can get some special guests in to join us at the same time. That would be really great. So Michelle Franklin in the Northern Territory, thank you.
Thank you.
Eran Segev in Sydney, thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Nice to see everybody.
Yes, it is. We are looking at everybody. It's fantastic. Heidi Robertson in the beautiful Northern Rivers, thank you.
Thank you.
Trish Hann and Skeleton Friend, thank you.
Cheers.
Mandy-Lee Noble, thank you very much.
Thank you, and goodbye, everyone. Lovely seeing you.
Michelle Bijkersma in Melbourne.
And nice to see you all and chat to you all as the new kid on the block.
Yes, welcome to the show. And Dr. Paulie, who did a lot of the technical work in making this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Until next time, cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Yes, bye.
Hi, my name's Jo Thornley, and I'd like you to join I'd like you to listen to my podcast about cults called Zealot. It's available pretty much anywhere you find podcasts, with further reading on the Zealot Facebook page. Each episode, a guest joins me to talk about a specific cult, where we answer the big questions like, is there yoga in it? And does anyone think they're Jesus?
Does anyone think that Jesus?
Pop over to my compound and have a listen. I've just mixed up a fresh batch of Kool-Aid.
Oh, Zealot.
I think we need to think. Here's Susan Gerbic. Hello, Skeptic Zone listeners. It's Susan Gerbic. I wanted to let you know that just because I'm keeping my ass at home these days does not mean that things aren't getting done. As you may know, I run many projects. GSOW, the Wikipedia project, Guerrilla Skeptics, which focuses on grief vampires, Monterey County Skeptics, which is my local, and many, many more. We are now a nonprofit organization called About Time, which acts as an umbrella for all the different projects that we run. We have a brand new YouTube channel called About Time Project and a Facebook page that includes content from all the different projects. Please check them out, subscribe, and share, and that would really help us out. The GSOW project continues to churn out quality work in many languages. We just added page 1,399, and those 1,399 Wikipedia pages have been viewed 62,249,687 times, a number that will be completely outdated by the time this segment airs. Speaking of page 1,399, that was an Afrikaans Wikipedia page for Plandemic, which I'm sure you're very aware of as it's been shared all over social media, and skeptics have a permanent red rash on their faces from constant face palming. GSOW has also written the Portuguese Wikipedia page for Plandemic, and possibly more by the time you hear this. Center of Inquiry's Ben Radford reached out to a few friends to help him with a project pushing back on Plandemic. He got Center of Inquiry to ask the filmmaker if he would answer a few questions about the documentary. Well, it was a short documentary, 20 minutes, I believe. The filmmaker responded in writing that he would be happy to. So Radford, along with Dr. Paul Offit, created 8 clearly written questions, sent it to them, and then followed up. Nothing but crickets. This led to Radford's excellent response called Plandemic Asks Questions But Won't Answer Them. And see the show notes. Well, Richard will include it there for you. I guess you can guess what GSOW's response was. Yeah, we added that article to all the Wikipedia pages we could, hyperlinked to Radford and Offit. And those will act as controls. So when we look at the page view numbers in a few days, we'll be able to see a spike, hopefully. Remember, when you do any kind of activism, you want to try to find a way of measuring your activism. So I'm expecting that people will continue visiting the Plandemic Wikipedia page. In the last 10 days, 250,000 people have viewed the English Wikipedia page. And we're hoping to see a spike in the number of times people view the Ben Radford, Paul Offit pages, showing that people are reading the content we left and also checking out the Radford and Offit Wikipedia pages. It should tell us something. The About Time project is also starting a new lecture series on Zoom called About Time Presents. You can find us on Facebook as well as on YouTube after the fact. Check these out. Richard Saunders will be one of our upcoming talks. So please, come and listen to one of our lectures, interact with the speakers, ask questions, share. The UK skeptics are also doing every week a wonderful Skeptics in the Pub, and I believe several other organizations are doing so as well. So you should have no excuse that you can't visit with one of our lectures from all over the world, and possibly you will be one of the people we talk to next. So thanks all. Stay safe and sane.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you to all those wonderful reporters who joined me this week in the think tank. We'll do it again, maybe every month or so. We'll get together and have a think tank session. We'll try to get different reporters. They all couldn't make it this time, and we'll get some special guest ring-ins as well. Maybe Maynard can do a dance for us, I don't know. And thank you to all those listeners who keep showing their support by Patreon or PayPal, and some very wonderful listeners who send in donations to help the Skeptic Zone keep going, to stay in your ears, to buy equipment. I've been bidding on a couple of nice microphones lately on eBay, and every time, in the last 3 times I've tried to get a nice microphone, someone sniped me in the last 10 minutes. Oh well, but it's only due to listeners like you that I can even bid on microphones and keep the show going at all. So thank you very much. And if you want to help out, just go to www.skepticzone.tv and click the Patreon PayPal link. Oh, and here's a late note. Apparently the blog post, the Facebook reply that Eran reported on from Telstra was actually a fake. Telstra said it wasn't them, but they wish they had done it anyway. We're certainly not short of conspiracy theories these days. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.